and say hello. I see everybody started to say hello. Hello from London. Hello, everyone. Nice. Awesome. Awesome. Very excited. We have 54 people so far, more joining in as they come. Really, really excited. Super, super cool. So let me share my screen while everybody's jumping in chat here and make sure that I have the right one. Perfect. And super excited. Community call. It's October. We have a lot to talk about. And so we're going to celebrate all the cool things that's been happening. What's new for marketers? What's new for developers? Really, really excited about all the amazing Strapify features. We're going to talk about migration, and Emily's going to share with us the roadmap, what's for the future, and then we're going to have our Q&A. And I'm going to bring Pierre here to say a few words. Strapi 5 is live. I mean, exciting.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, that's really the main announcement today. Strapi 5 is live, as you have seen a couple of weeks ago. So let's get started with a quick video that's going to highlight all of the improvements of Strapi 5.
Nice, nice. Here we go. Hit the play button.
All right, we're going to hear this on, Paul. If you can turn it on, that would be awesome. But in any case, we can read all of the content. Draft and publish.
Nice. I wonder if that audio's playing. It's a pretty hype song, building excitement. Oh, it's really, really, really cool.
We're going to go through all of these features in any case.
Yes,
I'm sorry if you cannot hear the sound.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna go through all the details. No sound. Oh my goodness, it's on me. I have to figure out how to share sound in the tab in Livestorm. But this is really cool video that's also on our YouTube channel, and you could definitely check it out. But with that being said, we'll just jump into it. Apologize for the no sound on this one. That's all on me. So let's go to the next slide here. With Strapi 5, you could easily get started test if you haven't yet, just by running npx create Strapi app at latest. And we want to jump in and talk about thanking you for all your amazing support and everything you've done. And before we jump in to have Pierre share some of our awesome features, I want to do a huge shout out for everybody who helped out. We had amazing launch parties launched by our tech partners, and it was really cool. We had IBS Dev, Notum, Smart Shore, AMGM, BH, Zyers, JavaScript, Cebu Community, Kellyapp, Place.me, and Theodore, which is really, really cool. Made a lot of noise, really got things going, got the party started, and really excited to share all the cool things with Strapi. With that being said, so many people in our community to highlight, but I had to pick few today, but so many have contributed so much. And I wanted to shout out to Matt Milburn, who created a lot of cool plugins for Strapi, including menus, preview button, and just very engaged member in community. We also had Boaz Pullman. He was one of the first, I think he was the first community member to migrate his config sync plugin to Strapi 5, gave us a lot of great feedback. And we also want a big shout out to Notum, who started testing out the migration process really, really early in the process when we were making the tool. Not only have they created a lot of cool plugins, but they actually tested out the migration process on going from Strapi 4 to Strapi 5 and plugin migration, and gave us really good feedback to help us to improve the tooling, make sure that everything was ready. So that is a really, really awesome. And to just shout out some of our other partners, we had, obviously Notum that we mentioned, Virtual Labs, Mux have an amazing video integration with us, MJX, really, really awesome. They all have or were the first to start migrating their V4 versions of their Strapi plugins to V5. So really, really excited. And we want to continue to encourage everyone to continue, if you are a plugin creator, is to migrate those plugins to Strapi 5. If you need help, definitely join us on Discord. Reach out to our team. We'd love to help you. We want to continue building that ecosystems because we're really, really excited for Strapi 5. And so I'm going to give this section to Pierre to talk about what's new for marketers.
All right, thank you, Paul. So Strapi comes with a lot of improvements for marketers. So the first one, which is on the next slide, is draft and publish. So in Strapi 4, when you publishing an entry, if you wanted to modify this entry, the only way was to erase the content that was already published. In Strapi 5, you can edit the draft version of an entry where the exact same entry is already published. This means that you can, for example, your Next.js application or any other front-end framework that is in its production environment will pull the contents from the published version. And in the draft version, in the modified version, I should say, you will be able to do some changes, preview these changes, and once and only once you're happy with these changes, you will publish them. Next slide. The other improvement for content editors is content history. This was one of the most requested features. Thanks to content history, you can now see who has done what in the CMS, and you can roll back to a previous version of any entry. I'm going to share my screen very quickly, and we're going to see what this looks like.
Awesome.
All right, so this is Strapi 5. Here, if I want to create a new article, I can click on new entry and say, hey, this is my new article. All right, so you can see that the status of my entry is draft, and that's because I did not publish my entry yet. And so I could either click on publish or save. That example, I'm going to click on save. And you can see that here, I do have this publish tab, but I cannot click on it. And that's because I still did not publish my entry. So now if I click on publish, I can see that I can click on the published version. And the status of my entry is now published. Great. So that's fantastic. It means that I can request the content from the API. And if I want to update my title here, I can click on save. And here the new status is modified. But it did not impact my published entry. And that's great because, as mentioned earlier, this means that I can use my front end in its staging environment to have some previews. And once I'm happy with these changes, I can click on publish. And now my updated article has been published. So this is the new draft and publish feature. It really is a game changer. It also reduces the need for having different environments in production, just because content editors will be able to work much more within the same Strapi instance to edit that content. All right, so this is even more powerful combined with the new content history feature that you can see here. If I click on content history, I can see all of the previous versions of my entry. And if I click on them, I can see that here I have the initial version without the updated word. Great. So that's fine. But what I really want here is to restore to a previous version. Okay, so I'm going to click on restore, and this updated the draft version of my entry. See, I don't have the updated word, but I did not validate anything. So the published version is still the updated one. And so the only thing I need to do now is to click on publish. And now if I go in published, I can see that the initial version is back online. Thank you, everyone. That's it for the improvements for the content editors.
Yeah, that is so awesome. I really like the fact that we made these changes because in Strapi 4, one of the things that was a very destructive thing, if you're working on a published article, you have to make sure that you get it all done before you republish the changes. And with Strapi 5 having this ability to safely work on a draft while you have your published content already on your website is amazing. And I love the fact that we have our content history, which allows you, if you make a mistake, you could always revert back to a previous state. I'm really happy for those huge improvements and changes. And so now I want to talk about what's new for developers. We have Theo here. He wrote this amazing article the top 10 changes that came out in Strapi 5. So we want to go ahead and share some of these changes with you and talk about them, and let us know in the chat which ones you're the most excited, if not all of them. And so the first change, and I'm sorry if you were having some feedback, but that's okay. The first change is here, the new API response format, which is really, really exciting, because now you get a more flattened response, only the data that you need, without having that extra nested content. Like we had data attribute. I'm sure all of you are familiar, because we heard your feedback on Strapi before when we introduced that change. What's also cool, due to this new change, some of you who are looking to migrate from Strapi 4 to Strapi 5, and you're like, oh my gosh, like the API changed. What am I going to do? Well, you still in Strapi 5 have this option of using the old response format. I have the little example here where you could, in your header, set Strapi response format equals v4, and you'll be able to get the old style response. So when you're migrating your project, you could do it in pieces. You could migrate to Strapi 5 first, use the old Strapi response in v4 to confirm that your front end works as expected, and then you could by piece migrate your front end code to reflect the new response format, which is pretty awesome. The second change we made is we now have document service replacing entity service. And we had to do it to support some of the new features that we have in draft and publish and content history. And I would recommend to reference our documentation or that article that Theo has wrote. I'll make sure to share all of those things in the links, but that was one of the bigger changes that we made, which is pretty cool, because they power new features, not only the features that we released, but all the other features we're thinking of doing moving into the future. And with that comes the new document ID. And it's a unique identifier that used to identify all the different documents that you have in your application. And again, this is a change that we needed to have in order to support some of these new features like draft and published, content history, because you might have multiple drafts of a document and we needed a way to identify which document you're working on. And one of the biggest things that we've been working to improve developer experience is working on making sure that Strapi 5 is 100% TypeScript. And one of my favorite parts about this, a lot of times when you're starting to create let's say a custom controller, or you're trying to figure out what methods you have available to you, now with TypeScript, you easily get that in your IntelliSense, which makes it much easier because you don't have to jump back into the documentation to try to figure out what are you trying to accomplish, because it's right there in the code. And that's such a huge improvement, and really huge shout out to our engineering team for implementing this amazing feature. Really, really, really awesome. And one of the things we changed, and we heard like feedback, some people, we no longer support entry creation on upload. So now it's going to be like a two-step process. You could kind of see it in the slide. And some people might be wondering, like, why did you do that? Why don't you allow us to create our collection type at the same time as we upload a new media file? And one of the reasons that stood out for me, because this is something that I encountered in the past, whenever I used to do everything in one shot, if, let's say, content creation for some reason fails, the whole process stops. Or if media file upload fails, then the content creation stops. So the better step, where you have a little bit more control, is to upload your file first, get that ID, and then create a new entry and reference that file ID. So that way, if the upload fails, you could retry it first before trying to create that entry. So I think, like, to me, this was a positive change, but I know a lot of you had some questions around that. Why do we no longer support entry creation and upload? And I hope that answered your question. And number 6, we have new functions for a query when using draft and published. We have count, published, unpublished and discard draft. That gives you a little bit more flexibility in order to control your drafts and your content that's published or not. So definitely check them out. And again, if you want to get more information, I'll definitely share the links for the documentation. Really, really important to work off our documentation, because our documentation team, Pee-wee and everybody there, did an amazing job in making all the improvements really awesome. And all those things you can learn in the documentation, including this new plugin SDK. So this is now a separate plugin that allows you to really quickly bootstrap a Strapi plugin with all the appropriate settings necessary. So it's a really easy way to get started with plugin creation. If you've never built a plugin, it's a cool exercise to do. Something that I'm going to work in the future is to create a tutorial how to make plugins with Strapi 5. And we'll talk more about the new plugin SDK and all the cool things you can do. But it allows you to really easily bootstrap your plugin, getting ready for publishing. And also during building, you could have a watch command where you could see the changes in real time that you're making, which is pretty neat. And of course, one of the biggest changes to improve performance of Strapi, especially in development when you're working, is we now use the Vite builder, which is pretty awesome. It has improved our builds by 15%, which is amazing, especially if you constantly going from making changes to wanting to see those changes. And you could check out an amazing video that is on our YouTube channel, where Alex Bonin talked about the reasoning behind, where he mentioned, faster dev mode, easier for developers to use because of zero configurations, and more importantly, leads to a lot of more future improvements, making it much easier to be able to integrate those features. And of course, I keep mentioning the documentation. Pee-wee did an amazing job on the documentation, all the improvements. And again, if you find something in the documentation that you need or doesn't make sense, please give us your feedback by clicking the feedback button, because our goal is to make the documentation your #1 resource to be able to get a lot of your questions answered when working with Strapi 5. And to take that one step farther, we included a new AI chatbot feature that is referencing all the documentations. The data was handpicked by our team, so it's only going to reference the things that we specified. So it's actually a really good tool to use to kind of get your questions. And I think of it not as like just a chat answer bot, but I think of it as like a very smart semantic search, which will give you the answer that you're looking for. But as you could see here, it also references the links to the actual article where it got that data. So if you want to get a little bit more in-depth information, you could just click on those links and it will take you to that documentation page. So searching for things in a docs with this AI tool, it makes it just so much easier, so much better. And preparing some of these slides, I'm not gonna lie, I used the chatbot to help me quickly prepare for the content, which I was like, wow, this is amazing. It actually knows what it's talking about. So definitely we'll check it out. And finally, this is one of the things I'm super duper excited is the Launchpad. To give a little bit history, before back in the day, we had our Strapi corporate starter. I just want to say a huge shout out to the community. We hit over 1,000 stars, 339 forks, a lot of great community engagement, contributors to the project. It was really, really cool. This project was really awesome. But we have an important update. And the update is that we have even better. It's almost like I don't think like there could have been anything better, but Maxime proved me wrong by creating Launchpad, a new official Strapi starter. Very beautiful, really awesome. I suggest you check it out. If you are non-developer and you want to quickly try it out, you could go to strapi.io, click try demo button. It will set you up with an instance of your backend and front end for you to check out this project. But if you're a developer, you want to look at the code, which I suggest you do. It's a pretty awesome project. I'll share the link for the repo. You could actually go take a look at the repo, follow the starting steps and set it up locally. And again, huge shout out to Maxime for creating this amazing project, which is going to be our official demo. So definitely keep an eye out on that. It's already out, so go check it out. And so before we talk about the other things, we love Strapi Cloud. I love it so much because in my mind, it is the easiest, fastest way to deploy your project without any hassle. One of the things I hate doing is I hate working at DevOps. I just want an easy solution to just click one button, get everything set up. Because if you were to do it your own, and that's the cool and beautiful part about Strapi, is that you can self-host it. You still are able to do that. But when you're self-hosting a project, you have to take into account where you're going to manage your database. How are you going to manage your file uploads? Do I have access? Do I have to set up my own email? And if you are going to do self-hosted, those are all the things that you have to do. But with Strapi Cloud, you get that out of the box. You get email, you get file storage, you get database, so many awesome improvements, and we continue to make things better. For instance, we have backups. We now have our Strapi Cloud CLI. We support GitLab, GitHub, and we have a new EU region. And most importantly, we are GDPR and SOC 2 compliant, which is a really huge step. Very proud of everybody on Strapi team to make this possible, because this takes Strapi to the next level. And to take it to even farther, the coolest part, and this is something that I was kind of always wanted to have, and now that we have it, super excited. So a lot of times when you have your Strapi Cloud application, you might have your local development where you make your changes and then you push stuff to production. So now Strapi Cloud offers multiple environments, so you can have your staging environment deployed, and then you could have your production deployment in Strapi Cloud, which makes working on your application and making sure you see all the important changes as necessary much more easier. So I really like that we have now Strapi Cloud multiple environments that allow us to manage that process much easier. Really super excited. And so now I want to talk about migration, and I'm going to have Alex also Webist, as he's known in our community, to jump on when he's ready, because I do want to ask him some questions, because he also migrated one of the plugins he made. But before, or while we wait for him to jump on, I just want to touch base about Strapi migration. And so number one resource is Strapi Docs. But for those of you who want to kind of get your hands on the migration process, if you will, get a practice run to see what it's all about, I did mention how we have our Next.js Strapi corporate starter, our older project, which is running Strapi 4. And so I wrote an article how I migrated that project to Strapi 5. And I'm going to share it here in the links. So if you wanted to test out the migration process to kind of get the first dry run to kind of before you do it on your project, what I recommend, go ahead, pull this repo, which is in V4 for our next corporate starter, and go through this process outlined in this blog post to show you how would you go about migrating your project. And I'll share the link to this in our chat here for you to check out. And as I was saying, Strapi Docs, best resource. Check out the article. And if you looked at the docs, you looked at the blog post, and you have more questions, the best place to go to ask questions is on our Discord open office hours. We have couple of times available. I think if you are more in EU, like 4 a.m. CST time, and then if you're more in the US time zone, we have one at 12:30 p.m. CST. Derek and I hang out there with other community members. We always have folks jumping on, sharing their screen, asking their questions. So definitely stop on by. But to make the migration process easier, we do have the upgrade tool, and you would literally just run npx @strapi upgrade major to start the process. Again, the tool is not magic. What it's going to do, it's going to upgrade everything that it can. And the general process overview when upgrading, make sure you, number one, start at the latest V4 project. So let's say if you were on version 4.20 dot something, make sure you upgrade to the latest version, which for me was 4.25.12. And once you're upgraded, make sure you back up your project files in your database just in case. And because Strapi 4 and Strapi 5 are a little bit different, if you have an older Strapi 4 plugin and it hasn't yet been migrated yet, the best step is to remove it first, just so you could get your project migration done first. And then once you remove any of the third-party plugins, run npx strapi upgrade major, and it's going to go ahead and run the process. Now, before I talk about the capability mode, the one thing that I want to shout out here is that if you have a simple project, for instance, in my case, I had a very base project. In terms of customization, I just had a couple of custom middlewares in Strapi, and majority of the stuff, the upgrade tool handled. If there's a place in your code where the tool is not quite sure what to do because you wrote custom code, it will add a to-do comment, so you could easily reference like where you need to do some manual changes, which I thought was pretty awesome. But you will see, like, if you have a very standard Strapi project, like, it will either do 100% of the work or take you most of the way there. And one of the biggest shout outs I wanted to do, this is something that Alex Bowden added, is this compatibility mode, which makes the migration process much easier, because now if you don't have to do everything at once, because you could focus on migrating your Strapi 5 project to, Strapi 4 project to Strapi 5 first. And then before touching your front end, use the Strapi response format v4 in your header, and make sure that everything works fine with your current front end project. And then you could start migrating. And for some of you, maybe you'll just be like, we'll just keep working with the old response. That's fine. And that way, depending on how much time you have or resources, instead of having to migrate both your back end and front end together, you could just migrate Strapi, use the old response, and then at a later date, migrate your front end, which is really, really cool. And by the way, I want to do a huge shout out to everybody in the team for adding all the links in the chat here, because I have such a hard time multitasking sometimes. So thank you, Alex, by the way, for this amazing feature. So here's an example. When you're making a request in your header, just add the content. Oops, I went too fast. Add the content type application JSON. In the header, Strapi response format. That's the most important part. Add that, you will get the old response. Super, super cool. So now I want to talk about like plugin migration, and we have Alex Bennett here, a webist as he is known in the community, and I'll have him share in a little bit, kind of like the process of migrating his plugin and his learnings really quickly. But first, I just want to talk about kind of the two different approaches that you have now, because so many things change in Strapi 5, and there's this very, like, the way the build step works. If you have a plugin that you built for v4 and you want to take advantage of some of those build steps in our plugins, with the, like, regardless if you're using TypeScript or not, it's recommended that you create a blank new plugin using the plugin CLI, and then you move your old code piece by piece to your new plugin, because this is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting that you might have to do manually if you do the second approach. And again, I say might because it really depends on the complexity of the plugin, but this is the recommended approach and is the easiest, because you get to move things piece by piece and make the changes as you need to. The second approach is to use the upgrade code mod tool. And you could learn more about it in our documentation. And this is the step that I took when I was upgrading my personal plugin. I actually went this route, and you will be able to run at Strapi/upgrade code mods run, and then you just point to the path of where your plugin resides, and it's going to go ahead and do its best to migrate all things. And by the way, if you want to see what other commands are available, you could run the help flag command here. I'll show you the output. But once you run the code mods, it's going to give you this menu similar to this one, which is going to show you some of the different code mods that you could run on your plugin code base. And it's going to go ahead and do its best to update all the dependencies and what's necessary. And Jamie, in one of the talks that he did that you could check out on YouTube, he talked about an example of using code mods. And so I highly, if you haven't watched his video that he did, definitely check it out. And that is another path to upgrade. Before we get to Emily, though, Alex, do you want to share some of your learnings and thoughts on the process that you took when migrating your plugin?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Paul. So I didn't actually use the code mod myself. I thought I'd go the masochistic way and basically start my plugin from scratch to migrate over to V5. More of an opportunity for me to learn the new V5 structure, as well as get used to the new documentation for V5 that the team launched. The process was really straightforward for me. I found one of the biggest changes, changing from document service to entity service was, entity to document was really straightforward. The biggest challenge I actually had, or am having, because it's not quite finished yet, is the design system changes. But they've all been well documented. All the breaking changes and all the migrations have been well documented in the new storybook that's been deployed. So for my own purposes, because I had quite a custom UI inside of my plugin, that's been the largest part of the work. The actual server side of the plugin was the easiest to migrate.
Yeah, and to your point, definitely, I think with everybody going through the migration practice early on, and we had a lot of the feedback, and we fixed it in the documentation. Like you said, you see all the changes that are documented from going design system V1 to V2. And what I would say, if you want to get like the general big overview that will answer like majority of your questions, definitely check out the link that Pierre shared in the chat with the talk that Jamie did. And also Ben gave an amazing talk about document service and edge service. So if you haven't seen the recent talks that we published, they answer a lot of the questions. We had also a lot of other videos covering the draft and published, covering the content history. You can also check out the video by Alex and JS talking about Vite and TypeScript, and Remy and Mark, exactly. So thank you for sharing that, Pierre. Really amazing videos. They actually very informative and answer a lot of the big questions that we have. So that's pretty cool. So like Alex said, like he said he took the masochistic way. I don't think I would say that masochistic way, to be honest, because after migrating like I'm working on another migration of a plugin, and I actually went to try the second approach where you create a new project with the CLI tool first, and then you move items piece by piece. And what you'll notice if you do that, if you have an old plugin, and you could do this experiment, run the upgrade tool, and you could see that'll take you most of the ways, but some of the best practices of how we are building plugins now might not be included, and that's something you would have to do manually. While starting with the plugin CLI tool, creating a new plugin, all of that scaffolding is going to be done automatically for you, and then it's just you focusing on taking your code and your server code, your admin code, and moving it piece by piece. And that way because you're moving it piece on piece, you kind of limit the surface area of your code editor complaining about all the errors. Because if you just do the code mod, everything that's broken in your plugin that you have to update, you're just going to have a bunch of errors. And sometimes it might be a little bit tough to kind of be like overwhelmed almost, because you're dealing with so many things. So I think both approaches are good, and you just have to decide which one makes sense for me. I do like, if you want, like Alex said, learn step by step in a way where you kind of understand the code behind the plugin, go the recommended way, use the CLI tool, move your code piece by piece, because in that process, you're going to engage with the documentation, and you're going to learn more about the plugin development in general and the best practices used. So yeah, thank you, Alex, for that. And again, any questions you have, you could find us on open office hours on Discord. We'd love to help with migration, with plugins, or any other questions you have. And finally, thank you, Emily, for your patience. I'm going to pass the baton to you to talk about what's next.
Thank you, Paul, and hello, everyone. I'm thrilled to give you a sneak peek at what we are currently working on in the product team that will be available in the coming months. So first, the team has starting to work on the administration panel responsiveness. This has been highly requested by a lot of you, and we're very happy to finally be able to work on this. So as you can imagine, it's going to be a long work, but we are starting this quarter with a content manager. Then on the relations, this will enable us to create and edit relations within the current entry. So there will be no need to navigate away to link entries anymore. So this will help managers save time and reduce workload interruptions. Then data trust system logs enhancements. We know this has been a frustration on your side, so we are improving the clarity of the error messages that can pop while transferring data and make the debugging way easier for the developers. And JavaScript SDK. So this one has been very requested too. The team is currently working on scoping the first iteration, so you will get more info on this very soon. And the last two features are in the Enterprise Edition, but we thought it would still be interesting for you to know what we are working on. So first, we are working on a better integration between releases and review workflows. And last but not least, we are going to release a first iteration of a native preview feature in the coming months. So it will only be compatible with Next.js for now, but there's more to come in the future. And that's it for me. Don't hesitate if you have any questions.
And Emily, I apologize for this. We're having some network issues. Can you just revisit the first the first three features, actually, if you don't mind?
The first three features, yes, sure. So the first one is the administration panel responsiveness. I was saying that it has been highly requested by a lot of you, so we are really happy to work on this. And it's going to take a lot of time, but we are starting this quarter on the content manager side. So that was for the first one. On the fly relations is a feature, not a feature, an improvement, which will enable users to create and edit relations within a current entry. So there will be no need to navigate away to link entries anymore. And the third one, you did the third one either, right?
Yeah, the improvements on DTS.
Yeah, exactly. So that system log enhancements will improve the clarity. We know it has been a frustration on the developer side, so it will help the debugging.
Okay, so to summarize, add better logs in DTS, so it's much easier to troubleshoot your issues. Oh,
exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Emily, and really excited to see all the cool new things that the Strapi team is working on. And before we open it to Q&A, just a huge reminder, there's many ways that you could engage with us on our Discord. We do have our forum, but we do have a question for you about the forum. But we find that the best way for us to answer questions, because we're actually able to do it real time, Derek and I and a lot of our members of the community, we host, and Rich also doing the 4 a.m. CST open office hours, and Derek and I do the 12:30 p.m. CST time. We literally hang out on Discord where you get to speak to us live, not like us humans. I know it sounds weird to say in 2024, but you actually are able to jump in, share your screen, and ask your questions. And it has been a really cool kind of experience for everybody, because not only are you able to ask your question and have Derek and I and other community members help you give the answer, but it kind of has this communal learning experience where people are learning from what the questions that you're asking. And we really encourage everybody to participate in the open office hours. And I did mention the forum. We do have the forum, but we want to consolidate, give our community a much better experience of being able to help the community themselves to answer questions. And so we are looking for some feedback. I'm going to share this link with you in just a moment, or if Derek, can you please throw this link? But go ahead, check out the post Derek made. We want to basically get your feedback on the forum. Is it helpful? What some of the challenges you were having? Because what we're thinking of doing is consolidating and figuring out a more streamlined approach how we could help the community. And when we say the community, we want to have the empower you, the users, not only to ask questions, but also to help answer questions. So let us know any tips how we can do that. And again, if you want to have someone answer your question in real time, the best place to do it is open office hours. That's why we have it Monday through Friday. And literally, if you have a question and you stop by, we will chat with you about it. So Derek and I can't hide. We're right there. So you're going to be able to ask us questions. So that is the best way. So definitely check out that blog post, give us your feedback. We are in the process of trying to figure out what that improved workflow will be, but we do want to make sure that we have the designated time where we could realistically, as Strapi team members, answer questions, which is the open office hours. And then we want to have community-driven answering our question. If it's Discord, if it's GitHub, we still try to figure out what we're going to do, but please give us your feedback. And with that, let's do some Q&A for anyone here on stage, or we have our whole team in the chat. So if you have any questions, just ask them in chat, things that you're excited, things that you want more clarification on, or just general questions. So I like this question. Will you guys have a tutorial series from Strapi team to build complex projects with Strapi 5 and Next.js 15? I think that's a cool idea. We very frequently release cool projects with Next 15 and Strapi 5. I just did a little tutorial on a blog page. So you could always find some cool projects there. But speaking of Next 15 and V5, we do have the Launchpad project. And what I was thinking, because it highlights a lot of cool use cases with Strapi and Next.js, a lot of different examples. So what I wanted to do as an idea is to actually break down those features and how we implemented them in Launchpad and create separate blog posts, maybe videos that kind of showcase how you would implement that feature in your Strapi or your Next.js application. I think when it comes down to it, it's not so much like how do you build a clone of something. I think it comes down to like, how do you do authentication with Strapi and Next 15? Or how do you do pagination? How do you do search? How do you do, log in with a provider? So all those basic building blocks that will empower you to build whatever project you want. And I think that's the approach I was thinking of taking, but let me know your feedback. So do scaffolding plugins with V5 automatically do tailwind CSS compilation? So in our plugins, we actually use and recommend that you use Strapi Design Systems V2, which is our library for components. And the reason we say that you should do that is because we want all of our users to have consistent experience with Strapi. And so we want the plugins to use our design systems. Not only does it make it faster for you to build your plugin because a lot of the components are already made for you, but it also creates that consistency. And I see, thank you, Pierre, for sharing the design system storybook where you could see all the components that are there. And let's see. I noticed that Strapi V5, there are some issues with relations to other collections where having more than 6 or so collections basically are complete for creating a relationship for another collection is limited to first 4 collections. The only way around it was to create a relation manually. Not sure if anyone noticed this, working in the community edition. This is a great point of feedback. And one thing that I was going to say, if there's an issue that you're having, go to the Strapi repo and create a bug. And because the first step for us is to make sure that we could reproduce the issue that you're having. And if it is a bug, of course, we're going to add it to our to-do list to make sure we fix. But just by reading this, the problem you mentioned, I haven't experienced myself personally. But yeah, if you create a bug report, there'll be a great first step. And I'll definitely try this out myself. Here's another great question by Anton, a very big community member, always hangs out with us in open office hours. But do you have any plans to switch media library and user and permission plugin to document service? So any of the teammates have that answer in the chat, let us know. I think down the road, there is discussion of redoing users and permissions completely, but I don't have all the details yet. So if anybody has Discussion in progress. Yes, as Emily said. So here's another question. If any collection type has been created, can we change their collection name from singular to plural name later? And someone could correct me. I believe you can do it in Strapi Editor, but it's not going to change that name in the schema. And so to update the name, you would have to update the schema. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way to do it. Yeah, and by the way, Pierre, you're doing all the heavy lifting. What are you doing? You're doing all the good stuff. Pierre shared the thing for feedback. He's doing my job better than me. I appreciate it. Feedback, Strapi developers. Definitely go there, check out, or give feedback on all the cool features that you want. And let's see here. Yeah, and specifically for the issue. And the way it works, like you could upload the features that you're most interested and the features with most uploads. We know that's what the community wants, and that's what we will start working on. Pedro says, will this tool handle the migration of the previous version structure related to proprietary plugins, or will we need to do it file by file, carefully respecting the new structure? So the two methods that we talked about, plugin migration, you could either take the route where you use the code mod, which will do as much as they can, but it's not a magic bullet. Like if you have custom code, that's something that you have to migrate manually. So if you have a plugin with a lot of custom code, I would recommend doing the approach where you use the CLI tool to create and scaffold a new plugin and then move code piece by piece.
Definitely the easy way.
Yeah. Especially, like Weber said, especially if you have a very complex plugin. And let's see if anybody, other questions, anything that we missed. Let's see. But while we wait for the last few questions, I just want to say a huge shout out to our whole Strapi team being here on the call, hang out in chat, or being here on screen. Thank you so much. I'm very excited with Strapi 5. A lot of cool improvements, just amazing job. And most importantly, like thank you for the community for being there for us. Building a project like Strapi 5 or Strapi in general is just a lot of work. And, it's an iterative process, and we have learnings along the way, and we appreciate everybody's feedback, patience, and support. And let's see here. And then Catalan says, try to build queries with the interactive query builder, kind of migrate all the queries, no errors in the query builder, but when localhost would populate. So one of the things that I would make a call out is that we do have slight changes for Catalan when populating dynamic zones, and I'm maybe gonna guess that that's where you're running into issues. Populating dynamic zones, you now have to use the on flag, and it's in our documentation. And that is one of the changes that you would have to take into account. And yeah, you could definitely hang out with us in open office hours, or just share on Discord, like Alex said. But yeah, typically that was the biggest thing. And this is something that I noticed. We had a very popular blog series called Epic Next.js, which we built an application with Next 13 and Strapi 4. So I'm in the process of updating that tutorial to make it current. So that's going to be another great resource to kind of see what are the changes. And I already upgraded the first 3 articles. And in the second article, that was exactly covering how the old populate filter on dynamic zone now has to use the on flag. So we'll definitely share those resources here. Let's see any other questions. And let's see. Yep, and then Emily answered Anton's question about responsive design. Let's see here. Another question about media library. The select button, it's not so intuitive in V4. Is this updated in V5?
I can answer it orally if you want. So no, for the moment, we didn't change anything, but we are going to bring a lot of love to the media library in the coming months. So stay tuned. It's really something we want to work on.
Nice. Thank you, Emily. Really awesome. And I do want to be mindful of everybody's time. So if you have burning questions, no pressure, of course, please ask them. Or you could always join us in open office hours. We're there Monday to Friday. We have an early morning, 4 a.m. CST time, and then 12:30 p.m. CST time. So, you could jump in with us in the open office hours 30 minutes from now and hang out. Cool. Yeah, and I think, let's see here. Yep. Yeah, I think we answered most of the questions. So I guess with that, what we could do is end today's community call and invite everybody to continue the conversation on Discord, and definitely join us in about 30 minutes at open office hours. I want to thank everybody in the chat who has been participating and joined the community call, not just our team members, but you, the community. And I want to thank everybody who was here on the panel, Pierre, Emily, Alex, and Theo. And if you have any other questions that come up after the stream, join us on Discord. But with that being said, thank you so much, everybody. This was so much fun, and we'll see you all in the next one. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, Paul.